Well, I'm talking at you from the shores of the North Saskatchewan River right here in scenic Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, bringing you myself, Jack Antonio, host of Do You Know Jack, the podcast. And on the line with me today is none other than Creeping Death Shredder, Trey Pemberton. All the way out to Texas, am I right? What's the river
Yes,
out there,
yes,
man?
sir.
What river are you close to out there?
River, huh? I guess the Red River. That's close to me. I live in Fort Worth. So that's right up near Oklahoma there. So about let's see, maybe an hour south of Oklahoma ish. So
Ah.
yeah. So that's the Red River is the border of Oklahoma and Texas pretty much. So yeah, I guess that would be the closest one.
Right on, little geography lesson for you today. I'm just trying to, there's so many goddamn states. There's 50 of them. I know
hmm
Texas. Everybody knows Texas, right? But in terms of everything else that surrounds it, it's all fucking it's a mystery. So
Uh-huh.
it helped. Your description of where the river was at least gave me a
Yeah, yeah.
general indication. Now, creeping death. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you get asked this every interview you've ever done, but I mean, you guys must be massive Metallica fans.
Oh yeah, big time. Just we grew up as like just hardcore kids, hardcore punk kids. So like
Right.
in that realm, it's very common for bands to name themselves after a song or an album that other bands or that you respect from another band or something like that. So we just did that. We did the same thing with that. A lot of bands kind of do that from where
Right.
we came from. Maybe we should have picked one that wasn't as popular of a song, but I don't know. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, well, I think there's probably a couple other creeping deaths out there, right? I mean, have you ever been served with a cease and desist, or are you all protected from the copyright standpoint?
We seem to be good. We haven't gotten anything in 5 years we've been a band, so we're just gonna keep rolling with it until we hear something.
Yeah, like when I was a wee young lad, I named my band Rat Salad, but I mean we weren't old school death metal band. We were more punk rock, but it made me wonder like how many other Rat Salads are there out there? Who knows? I mean, Creeping Death's a pretty
Yeah,
fucking good name. I mean, I'm assuming that is that your go-to Metallica jam though, Trey?
it's actually my third favorite. Blacking's probably my favorite, and then the thing that should not be would be my second favorite, and then Creeping Death would be my third favorite.
Right on. I remember, the day that I discovered. I think that one's on Ride the Lightning. Am I right?
Creeping Death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You made me have to think about the Metallica discography and what songs are where in that holy trinity of Cliff Burton albums. But I remember the day that my friend and I discovered it. I mean, before that, our idea of heavy was Judas Priest. But when we put on Ride the Lightning, it kicks off with Fight Fire with Fire, and it starts all nice and pretty. And then it just starts to, beat the shit out of you with the hardcore James Hetfield right-hand riffage.
Oh yeah. It comes in hot and heavy after that the little interlude at the beginning.
Yeah. Do you model yourself after Hetfield as a guitar player? Because I mean, just delving into your release, Wretched Illusions. I mean, there's definitely a lot of speed going on there with the right hand flat picking.
Mm-hmm. I would, Metallica definitely influenced me in like ways like wanting to just be, musicians and like style things like that. Like the reason I play like an Explorer body is basically just James Hetfield. So
Right.
that's kind of where that like comes from. As far as like the actual style of play, I'm just trying to emulate the bands that we are trying to take influence from. Basically,
Sure.
it's kind of been the same few bands since the beginning of the band, like Grave, Bloodbed Throne, Sepultura, Gorguts, Bolt Thrower, things of that nature. So that's kind of where that I think that heavy picking, down picking kind of comes from.
Right.
On our end anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, it's not all fast either, right? Because I mean, like a lot of your songs start a little slower and then they pick up speed, which I suppose is sort of a more like old school death metal, almost like Floridian influenced sound there. I mean, I love a good band like Obituary, for instance, or thinking of some of those other old school bands like Cannibal Corpse, and of course, the
Hmm.
godfathers of death metal themselves, Death. I mean,
Oh
is
yeah.
that stuff that you guys listen to quite often too as well?
Oh yeah, we all love that stuff for sure. I just think us as people, we all have very diverse tastes other than metal too. So we also all bring that to the table as well. And and just in other types of music, it's not all one tempo the whole time. It's not all one thing the whole time. So we want some variation with our music too. We don't want it all just fast or all just slow. Like we want to have a good flow, up and down, kind of. We want it like a ride. We don't want it
Yeah,
just beating you the whole time. We want to have some dynamics in there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I was watching. I think it was on YouTube. There's a show of yours there, and it seems like you guys are, you've got a bit of a following. You're like in a warehouse or something like that. I mean, given the the metal scene in Texas, I mean, is this a pretty typical scenario where you guys are playing a venue of that nature? You know the video I'm talking about?
Not really. There's probably a million from shows when we were doing mostly just hardcore shows because that's where that kind of comes from. Just
Yeah.
being hardcore kids coming from the Dallas Fort Worth like hardcore scene. That's the shows we were just playing. We were just playing hardcore shows. That's where all our homies are from. That's the where we come from. So that's kind of just where that stems from. Just different warehouses, basements,
Yeah.
things of that nature. It wasn't really until the last 2 years that we started to play like legit venues, bars, theaters, things of that nature. Before
Yeah.
that, we were just, doing the hardcore thing, playing VFW halls and basements and, like just anywhere they would let a show happen pretty much. So that's probably one of those.
Yeah, I mean, I remember in the, I didn't always live in Saskatchewan. I just moved here the last couple of years. I used to actually live way up in northern Canada, and I can remember maybe circa, 2005 to around 2008, there was a real DIY hardcore culture going for a while. Kids
Nice.
recording their own music, putting up their own flyers and things like that. I mean, is this the kind of culture that you guys are kind of, talking about, the kind of whole
Oh
DIY
yeah.
thing?
Absolutely. Maybe updated for the the 2010s and 2020 era. But the same thing, maybe not passing out flyers, but kids are drawing flyers and sharing them around, and we're doing stuff to, you know, locally and things of that nature. Like for example, one of the hardcore venues in the area is doing a food bank, and then they donate art supplies for children that can't go to school right now because
Right.
of the virus and all that. So we made a bunch of like cloth masks, and we're basically just splitting the proceeds with them. So
Yeah.
so stuff of that nature. That's kind of how we kind of get down here. At least we try to
Yeah.
as much as we can.
Well, now I was wondering what the cloth mask, thing was because I mean I've noticed other, more mainstream bands like Korn, for instance. I'm not sure if they were using the sale of masks as a charity, but that's pretty fucking cool that you guys were, pairing up with a local charity and then essentially
Hmm.
selling people things that they could actually use in this time. It's a pretty bizarre period in history we're living through.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And now's a good time to help out, and
Right.
especially helping out with something that or with like in our case, the charity we're helping with is like actually an actual venue that we've played many times, and
Yeah.
we owe a lot to. So that just keeping it within hardcore as well, and just helping our own community is really cool. So
Yeah. Well, now the record, Wretched Illusions, released September 27th of 2019.
yes.
I would imagine there was probably a whole slate of shows booked ever since the record released, right? I mean, have you guys been faced with the same thing that a lot of people have, canceling shows en masse?
Yeah, luckily, we had a whole fall worth of things pretty much. Before the album came out, we were on tour for about 2 weeks
Right.
with a band called Inter Arma, and then
Nice.
and then the next week we played a festival in Atlanta, and did a live stream for Adult Swim, the TV channel.
Oh, wow.
And then so we were busy around that time for sure. And then in November we did the High on Fire Power Trip Devil Master tour, which was the biggest tour that any of us have ever done in our lives. So we were fortunate enough to be extremely busy, and we could play some really big, good shows right after the album came out. And then in January, we did a week tour on the West Coast with Shangri Sugar Bog. I don't know if you've heard of that band from Ohio.
I haven't.
Maggot Stomp band. It's a pretty crazy dudes, pretty crazy band. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, so we've done a lot of stuff. Like, we've been lucky. We were in the middle of a tour when all this stuff, went down. We had been on tour for probably 4 weeks prior. We had a 2-week tour about a week tour with Terror, Dare, and the Warriors on the West Coast, which was incredible and like insane.
Yeah.
As a hardcore kid, that was like one of my favorite tours. It was like a bona fide hardcore tour, and it was dope. And then we were on tour with the Acacia Strain, Rotting Out, Chamber, and Fuming Mouth. And that's the tour we were on when everything happened. We were very, very lucky that we had a week off in the tour. We finished in Austin, Texas on the 11th, and that was the last normal show of the whole tour. So we were able to go home and essentially start quarantine right then.
Yeah.
And then everyone else drove to the West Coast. At that time, there was different cancellations and size limits for shows, and eventually everything got canceled. So all the homies I know Chambers from Nashville, Tennessee, which is probably about 70 hours away from the West Coast. The Acacia Strain, they're all from the Midwest and the East Coast too, so they had to drive roughly the same distance. Same with Fuming Mouth. They're from Boston. That's like the other end of the country.
No doubt.
So all these people had to drive across the country, and we all had basically re-upped on merch because we had another 3 or 4 weeks of tour left.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a pretty rough situation for all of us. We're all trying to keep our heads above water and do what we can here and there.
Well, that's what I was going to ask now is, how this, effectively financially, how this whole thing is hit, and, if you've got anything in the real world going that might help to, pull you out of this when, this whole COVID-19 hopefully sooner than later, stops.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me personally, I'm lucky enough to still have a job right now. I'm still working. I work in mental health, so that's something that's probably not going away anytime soon.
No.
So I'm pretty lucky in that sense. Basically, but the office is closed, so I can go up there and work by myself. So it's actually safe on my end as well. So I'm very, very lucky. As far as the band goes, we're doing a really good job of staying busy. We're still talking to our label and our manager and stuff like that.
Right.
I think we're still planning on having we still have tour offers for later this year. Obviously, we're not sure what's the deal with those are going to be, but we just act like we're going to do it until you can't. It's pretty much how we're trying to go about it. We're just trying to stay afloat by selling merch. We're trying to plan some sort of maybe some live streaming thing. It's all very up in the air, so don't quote me on that one. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But we just want to, do stuff to keep around, keep relevant. So that way, when everything is normal, we can come back and tour like everything is the same. I think we're going to be writing some new tunes here too. We already wrote some new riffs here and there. So we're definitely keeping busy, and we're not going to let this time just kind of erase everything. So
yeah, well, that's what I was going to say is a lot of musicians have at least been trying to put a positive spin on the whole thing and at least, get out there and write music and also find new and creative and innovative ways of interacting with the fans, at least digitally. So it sounds like you guys are on the right track there. Given that, you were just talking about, writing, you're a guitarist, but I think you also play drums. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm a drummer first. That was my first instrument. My mom taught me how to play drums when I was about 12 years old.
Wow. So you come from a musical family?
Just her. It's so funny. My dad, complete opposite. no sort of musical talent, rhythm, anything. But I get my math skills from him. I'm good at math because he's an engineer, so he's
Right.
like math and science guy. And my mom is very, even though she's incredibly intelligent, like don't get me wrong, she's probably smarter than my dad in more ways than one. But
Right.
yeah, but she's the creative. That's where I get the creativeness from, and my musician side, pretty much.
So then when it comes to the writing of the tracks, you're approaching this from a drumming angle first?
Oh, absolutely. I basically, if I'm writing a riff, I'm writing the drums in my head. Like I'm writing to what I want the drums to be in my head. So that's kind of where I start off as a basis. I bring it to the table usually with kind of an idea, and then the guys will kind of tinker with it here and there, and maybe Lincoln will play a completely different beat than I had pictured. But that's the cool thing about this band is that we all work so well together that we just bounce ideas off each other, and there's no egos or anything like that. It's a real team effort. There's not one like maybe I'm the guitar player and I'll bring riffs to the table, but they don't finish like the way I bring them 9 out of 10 times. So
Yeah.
it's a very team thing. It's not just one person predominantly writing the music for this band.
Yeah, well, now I noticed your own personal playing is very riff orientated. I mean, you do squeal out some leads here and there, but I mean, in terms of your own leads, I mean, where do the influences fall when it comes to that sort of thing?
For sure, definitely Sepultura. A lot of the solos are very Sepultura-esque. Obituary, especially with like anything with the dive bombs and those types of solos. But that's that main Obituary kind of influence. We're trying to bring in some more influences. Maybe some. Our other guitar player, he also shreds too. So he's a big Death fan. Who might bring some solos of that style into it. Who knows? We're feeling adventurous. So
Yeah.
who knows what might pop out.
Well, now I've noticed with a track like World Decay, for instance, I mean, you've got a bit of a groove that starts almost, reminiscent of Pantera.
Oh yeah, that was our hardcore song. That was the one for the moshers. We were like, let's just write one like ass beater song, and that was it. We were just like, we just want one song for people to mosh to, hence the obvious build up and all that stuff.
Right.
So that was the kind of idea for that, and yeah, I mean, we just like that's a big thing for us is that I mean, I'm black, Eric is Dominican, Reese is Persian, and so we're all culturally come from different backgrounds, but very like rhythmic backgrounds. So we all like music that has roots to it naturally. Like I like R&B and rap music and soul, and Eric likes a whole bunch of other different Latin kind of stuff. So it's like we just naturally all want to just groove. So the groove thing really just comes into play because
Right.
that's like how we kind of like to style that. Also, being from Texas, even people who don't like Pantera, you're influenced by Pantera a little bit. Come on now, like so naturally you're gonna have that in there too,
Now, from a lyrics standpoint, I mean, is that all Reese?
Oh yeah, all the lyrics, all the themes, ideas like album art, all that comes from Reese. So yeah, we all kind of have our own little things. Definitely the riffs and the music and stuff, and structuring stuff. That's me and the media. And then Reese is definitely lyric and themes and things of that nature. And then Eric is like the business guy, and so is Lincoln. They come up with business ideas, merch ideas, and things of that nature. And then also everyone helps write like Eric and Lincoln do. So
Yeah.
everyone's got their responsibilities, and it just runs real smooth. It's really cool.
So let's talk about a couple other of these tracks, Trey. I know, for instance, Ripping Through Flesh was you shot a video in a cave. It's also the longest song on the track, but probably more because there's a bit of a, ambient noise kind of introduction. I would imagine if you took that out, it would probably be about 4.5. I mean, there's nothing like, I mean, I don't want to say you guys aren't progressive, but I mean, this is, to a certain extent, the songs are quick and I mean, there's a lot of variety riff wise in there, but I mean, is this by design? Is this how Creeping Death operates, just sort of straight to the point, so to speak?
Yeah, we're not dancing around the. What you see is what you get with us. We're the intense in your face. That's kind of how we want the music to be, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah, so that's as far as we try not to write. Like we try to write music just in the thought of just the song itself, not necessarily like how long it's gonna be. So once we feel the song is wrapped up, then that's kind of how we wrap up the song. We played it and we were like, oh, the song's kind of long. We were like, oh, whatever. It's like death metal. There's so many long death metal songs. It's not comparatively to other like death metal songs.
Yeah.
It's not really that long. And then the rest of the songs, I think on the album average maybe 3.5, 4 minutes. So it's not really too bad.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, one of the kind of more keep it simple, stupid kind of bands, death metal bands out there is Obituary. I mean, I've talked to John himself, who's sort of basically described his own sound as caveman death metal. I mean, I don't know if I would go so far as to say that about Creeping Death, but I mean, you're, like I said, you're certainly straight to the point. I mean, even a song like Bloodlust, Contamination, for instance, where you guys you shot another video for that one there. I mean, what can you tell us about that one?
That's a funny story, actually. That one was very, very short notice. We were literally leaving on tour maybe, I don't know, 3 weeks, a month beforehand. And basically our label was like, hey, we want you guys to do a music video. And we're like, we're leaving. And at the time, I don't know what was going on. We couldn't film, like we didn't have anyone to do a music video with in Dallas before we left. So what we did was our friend Cameron Nunez, who lives in Jacksonville, Florida.
Right.
We were playing Jacksonville the second night of tour, I think. So basically what we did was play the first show, drive straight overnight to Jacksonville to go to the studio that we recorded the music video with Cameron. But since the whole thing, we figured it out like maybe a week or two in advance. We didn't have an idea for the video. So we got together, we were like, Cameron, what can we do? We just want to make it look cool. We don't have any ideas. We're like, all right, well, we'll kind of play around with it. So we kind of, we were like, oh, we like that, oh man, I can't remember what music video it was, but it's a Pantera music video, and they're all essentially just playing in a room together, and that's it. And we were like, oh, this is cool. Like, we just want something simple like this. And he's like, yeah, we can do something simple like that. Let me just play with the ideas. And he changed the color scheme, and then we made it look all vintage and all this stuff. So Cameron definitely was the creative vision and creative force behind that whole video. He killed it. It was super short notice. He got everything together, the studio and all that, super short notice.
Right.
And we just knocked it out, and we finished it in one day. It was crazy. It sucked because the night before we played, I think, Atlanta, and the show started at midnight. So we literally didn't get done out of the venue until like 3:30 in the morning, even though it was a 3-band show. So we were out of there really late, and we just drove straight to Jacksonville, which is probably 5 or 6 hours. And we got there at like 8 a.m. And then we're like, all right, we're at Cameron's. Time to follow me to the studio. And we just did it right then. Basically just not running on any sleep or anything. Just kind of worked on that for 4 or 5 hours. And then we came back to Cameron, took like an hour nap, maybe got some food for a second. And then we went and played a show in Jacksonville that night. And then we get back to Cameron, and then we filmed the scene where Reese is at night with the torch.
Yeah.
Then we go out into a field in the middle of nowhere in Duval County, Jacksonville, and we film that part. And that's at like 1 or 2 in the morning too. So we're not asleep, like passed out again until like 3 in the morning. So we were basically running 24 hours straight with like 1 or 2 naps, like that whole day. It was wild.
Well, now I was gonna say, just from watching those videos and some of the live clips that are on there, I mean, you're a fairly animated guitar player. I mean, you mentioned that there's that hardcore influence that comes into play. I mean, is there any one particular guitar player movement wise that you've sort of grown up watching that kind of has allowed you your own stage presence and persona to evolve in that manner?
It's kind of a weird hodgepodge of not necessarily one person, but different just styles of music that I like. Obviously the death metal headbangs and swinging your hair around and stuff like that come from that. But I don't know, the jumping around and the energetic stuff. That's definitely from hardcore. Just seeing people do that all the time. It's just hype. You know, it's fun. Like I have ADD, like really bad. So that's just kind of how I express like my energy, like on stage. It's not something I really think about in the moment. It just kind of happens. I wish I could just show people like home videos of me when I was a little kid, because then I could point it out and then everyone would seriously get it in the first 15 seconds. They'll be like, oh, that's why he does that stuff, because he's been doing that stuff as a child. How does his parents deal with that all the time? I don't know. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Is that what led you then to go into mental health as a profession, just having that, growing up with that struggle?
Oh, no. That my mom is a psychiatrist, so I work at the office that she works at with some other people as well. So it's more of like a family thing. She was an ER nurse for a long time, and then she went back to school roughly, now it's probably about 10 years ago, and I got another degree and went into psychiatric health.
Wow, that's quite something. Well, listen, man, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I mean, I've definitely appreciated just being able to chat with you today about all things Creeping Death. And of course, Wretched Illusions was released Friday, September 27th of 2019. Trey, if you want to throw out, any information, I think, your merch can be found, in a certain location. And, you guys are also on Bandcamp, I think. But I mean, give us some info to find out more about the band there, bud.
Yeah, if anyone's listening and they want to help out, visit creepingdeath.bigcartel.com. It's got all of our leftover merch from the tour we were on. Like I said earlier, we had about 4 weeks left, so we have a ton of stuff sitting there, lots of merch debt. So that's the best way to help out the band directly. If you can just pick up a shirt or a bag or even just a patch, something like that would help. We ship to Canada, and we fixed the Canadian shipping, so it's not going to be obscene now. So should be good to go.
Awesome. Well, like I said, thanks a lot for chatting with me today, Trey. Much appreciated.
Thank you, man. Glad to talk to you.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Take it easy.